After a killer week filled with amazing stories from Darren Starr, Sandy Grushow, Jessica Klein, and Michael Lang, Charles Rosen and Larry Mullen are back, talking all things Valerie Malone.
Hey, Brandon.
She went from Saved by the Bell to Beverly Hills 90210. Along with host Pete Ferrero, they take a deep dive exploring the ups and downs of one of the show's most dynamic characters. And if that's not enough, Carole Potter, aka Cindy Walsh, will join us to take your questions and weigh in. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Beverly Hills 90210 Show. And go to BeverlyHills90210show.com to watch the show live Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hey guys, here we are. We're back again. We've got our crew, and we are so lucky to be joined by Carole Potter this week. Of course, you guys know her as Cindy Walsh. Carole, how are you? How's everything going?
Well, I'm surviving. I live by myself, so I'm just dying for a hug.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm actually working on edits for a book I'm writing with a colleague in New Jersey. So it's been kind of perfect. Just having to stay focused on my work. I think this round of edits is going to be done next week, and then I can relax a little bit.
Very cool. We're all excited to talk about Valerie. Have our usual suspects in Larry Mullen and Charles Rosen. Larry, how's everything going with you this week?
It's getting, a lot of the same stuff, but I'm working on something. I've moved into novels, so I'm in a third novel. So life goes on.
And Chuck, what about you, man? How's everything with you?
Well, we're doing okay. Had a nice Mother's Day with happy the beaches in LA County are open again. Now we just need some waves and cleaner water, and I'll be in there.
Water.
And some warmer sun.
Yes.
That would be good too.
Yeah.
But I have a wetsuit, so
Lily, how about you? How's everything going? How's everything on the boards and with the fans and all that stuff?
Terrific. Still plugging away.
Very, very cool. All right, listen, guys, before we jump into everything, I want to show you some shirts. We're going to run a little promo, and then I'll show you some new designs, some brand new designs that are just coming out. But here's the promo about the shirts.
Hey Beverly Hills 90210 fans, stop what you're doing right now and go check out some awesome new t-shirts available at the Beverly Hills 90210showshop.com.
I'd like to exchange an egg.
I've made my choice and I choose me.
That's right. Some of the most memorable moments from the TV show are available on your very own t-shirt.
Hey guys, don't go away, Mad. Just go away.
You know you want a Ray Pruitt concert tee. How about a Beverly Hills Beach Club member shirt? So go ahead and check out BeverlyHills90210showshop.com for everything you need. T-shirts, mugs, tank tops, sweatshirts. You will not be sorry.
All right, it's very cool. So now we cut some new ones. All right, you guys are gonna love this one.
Yes.
I was always taught that if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck.
Thank you.
We have
a lot of people that's been waiting on that one.
We got an ode to Dylan, right? Welcome to Paradise.
Love
Welcome
that.
to Dream Come True. I love that one.
Fabulous.
And then we got a great Brandon. I don't dance. I don't walk.
Yeah. I don't foxtrot. I don't boogie.
Exactly. And then lastly, and this will be great because Chuck, next week we're going to do a Steve-centric episode. So how about that? The legacy key. Think of the
legacy key. Yes, there was a legacy key.
All right, so let's jump into talking about Valerie. Hey, listen, guys, I think it's important to note before we even jump into the show that, these guys are talking about stories that happened, 30 years ago. So it's the perspective many years later. So sometimes when we talk about actors or characters, we're talking about a perspective from a very long time ago. Everybody grows and shapes up, right, Chuck? Wouldn't you kind of agree with that assessment?
Well, when you're doing a hit, when you're involved with a TV show, and especially one that's all of a sudden is doing 28, 29, 32, 33 episodes a year, what you have is show life. And you have Larry, Carole, and I. We were adults in a world where there were people who were teenagers effectively, and early 20s, and fake IDs and whatever else. So,
Sure.
It was a long time ago. I do feel that what our show is of real value to fans and even beyond fans is that those first 5 seasons, at least, or maybe even just the high school, I don't know, but I think the first 5 seasons itself, I think you get a great sense of what was going on in the 1990s. I think it's one thing to say, oh, this is an iconic show from the 1990s. I think the show reflected values from the 1990s up and down the board.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a good place to start. So Chuck, why don't you jump us in about Valerie Malone? I'm always also sort of fascinated as we talk about the character development of where the name even comes from. Why don't you sort of set up how Valerie is going to come to 90210?
She's going to come through 90210 through Mr. Spelling's office. There were 2 things that Aaron, well, I should say there were 3 things during this television show that Aaron really cared about. One was casting, one was wardrobe, and the thing he cared about most, of course, was Tori. Those were the highlights of his interest. So casting was something that, it was like we would give him through a man. His head of casting was a man named Tony Shepard, and Tony, we would cast. He'd be in on all the casting, and once we, even before the offers went out, final offers, I guess, he would approve or not approve. I only remember one time he overruled, but this was his domain, and so the question was, we tried to always make it work. So when I was told, pretty much that the fit, if this was a horse race, the fix was in, and meet Tiffani, then Amber Thiessen. That was I know you've asked, and I don't know even know if Larry remembers this. I guess somebody else auditioned for the part for the network, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
I'll tell you, a couple of things happened. One was they put an offer right away to Lisa Milano. She turned it down.
Wow.
Then later on, she would do Charm, but she turned him down for this.
You learn something every day.
Then we had a short list. We had a short list, and I only remember the other girl who didn't get the part, and I only remember that because I was at a wedding at her father Chaim Saban's castle. Her name was Heidi, whatever the name she used as an acting name. She was very good, but we just, Tiffani had we always viewed, not to be cruel, but we viewed Saved by the Bell a little bit like the minor league. That was our minor league team.
Sure.
Bring Tiffani up and play with that and do what we did. So that she seemed like an actor. Plus, we were so glad. We thought Brian would love it.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack here. Yes, Jennifer asked, was that Alyssa Milano? In case we couldn't hear, yes, that's what he said, Alyssa Milano.
Yes, I said Alyssa Milano. That's correct.
Yeah.
I was so far out of it. I like Larry, remember that, she goes out with Brian Austin Green. I said, oh, great, you'll be part of the family, because let's face it, this was going into the 5th year. We were no longer that little show that could. We were no longer low license fee. We were a hit television show. She's walking on a stage now. This isn't just with 6 or 7 other actors. It's 6 or 7 other actors that are known all over the world. So it was a whole different dimension. And, she's going to fit in. She knows she's with Brian.
I'm curious. So Brenda's leaving. Is that what sort of creates the need for Valerie?
Well, yes, we needed another. Yes, absolutely, we wanted another leading lady in our cast,
and in the room, and in Brenda's room,
and in Brenda's room. Absolutely, that was important. Who's going to move into Brenda's room? And we worked back that way. The other thing that I had resisted through high school episodes, which was I didn't really want a quote unquote bad girl. Mm-hmm. I was ready for that now. We were in college. We had done 1 year college, and now we really needed to, and we had no, the fact of the matter is, I often say with 90210 that we did 5 different television shows each season. And this was the Valerie season. It was, and made, goodbye, Brenda. Hello, Valerie. That's really what season 5, in a lot of ways, was about, integrating her into the ensemble and finding and exploiting a bad girl and I put that in quotes because I think that by looking at these episodes, I saw something a lot different than something as simplistic as that.
Yeah. I'm curious to know if anybody suggests just recasting Brenda. Does that ever come up?
Never came up.
That done in places.
Do you mean recasting Brenda at the end of season 1 or during season 4 or 5?
Shift is coming. Someone say just recast her or something like that. I mean, I can imagine that you hear a lot of that stuff that goes on.
She has a car crash and comes back with plastic surgery, and
right.
That would have been Aaron's instincts probably about 10 years before this.
I don't think the fans would have taken.
Never came up. It did early on in the show. After surprisingly enough, but that didn't go anywhere and wasn't really a serious proposal.
Gotcha.
We hope she'd come back. We hope she'd come back also. I mean, we tried to keep her alive because there was always the hope she'd come back. She was part of the Dylan world and Brandon.
Yes.
World. Everybody.
Carole, for you, you have this sort of role where you're Cindy, and this is
and my daughter disappears.
Your daughter is disappearing. I guess from two places. As the actor, what is your thoughts on that? And then as the character, because I'm sure you're developing, stuff in your head as the character. How do you sort of work on some of that? That there's this new person coming to live in. Yeah.
I have to say, I just went with it. I mean, I didn't really know much of the backstory. So I'm hearing it from here and there, and Brenda's leaving. Oh, there's going to be a new person. So, okay, I was just kind of game for it, and they're very, very different actresses. Shannon is very sort of internal, and sort of can be very private in her work, whereas Tiffani is like out there. So she'd come on, and Tiffany's a real gal, if you know what I mean. I mean, she'd come on with like gangbusters, shaking hands, hi everybody, and she's big and she's loud, and in some ways more like me.
Yeah.
So we hit it off right away. I mean, I didn't have any trouble adjusting to her. It just had fun every time we had a scene together.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And so, Chuck, let's go into that. We talked a little bit about, hearing some of the other actresses that were up for it. Who decides Tiffani? And then do you know that Tiffani is going to be playing this new character, or is the character sort of already starting to develop without the actor?
I think they happened pretty quickly at the same time, really. We knew that we were going to have this, and we Larry and myself and Steve Wasserman and Jessica Klein, and Chip Johannesson, we probably put our heads together, I imagine. And I think Valerie, I like the name Valerie. Malone probably came from Wasserman. You asked that. He liked to name people.
Buffalo, I think maybe, I don't know where that came from. Maybe.
Something that was even colder than Minnesota, I think.
Chuck, I think we did write some sides though for the actresses. We had to write some sides. I remember that before we had even finished the script.
Correct. And I guess it was, I don't think it was. I know it wasn't the last scene with her rolling. We did not do that, but it probably, and that made perfect sense to do that. But it was such a different contrast, and the idea of, I've always been a real sucker my whole life for the unreliable narrator. So you're being told something, and no, that's not the way it is. Well, that's Valerie presented us with a character like that because she is such a, she was from Long Beach, a wonderful family, just had that all-American, outgoing beauty that Carole's talking about, and personality, and now we're telling her, okay, you develop now one of the nastiest, most duplicitous sexually deprived characters you can find. Put that in that little package, please. And that was, I think, a real acting challenge.
You know, seeing it again, I have to say, I was so impressed with her work. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it was pretty good stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's just
she brought a maturity to the set, really. I mean, I think probably because of her experience on Saved by the Bell. I mean, she was one of the more grounded members of the cast at that time, as I recall. And the fun thing for me was, of course, Cindy just sees this lovely, fun side of her and what a nice, sweet girl she is. So I never had to deal with the, her kind of evil other alter ego.
Yeah,
right. Because this is the time in the first 7 that we keep talking about, which is what I did on my summer vacation, which Larry and I wrote, and then Who's Zooming Who, when which Karen wrote by Karen Rosen, and the whole thing of her duplicity comes out. But I'm looking at you, Carole, in those 7 episodes, and it's so, because every time she's telling a whopper or a lie, I'm just going to go out, I'm just going to do this, you would react, you just, like, oh, okay. And you would manage to just get yourself out of the camera so quickly, so you didn't really have to react to her, lie to even weigh in, like, oh, is that true? You never look like that, it just was, you were so happy to have someone in Brenda's room, and also, your nurturing side this was a child you grew up with and had a friend, a close friend who killed himself.
Yeah.
Her father.
Yeah.
So where does that develop from when you're developing?
We were trying to create a broken character. We were trying to create someone on the top who looks totally normal but really is broken inside. So we have that trauma to deal with, and that's that gives us the thrust to get her out of Buffalo into the Walsh house in a believable way. She needed to change the scenery.
Right. For the fans, remember that we're doing so many episodes, we're just trying to find material. So if she's all whole and everything's great, we got nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
But now to say, oh, well, she had this terrible thing. And in one of the early episodes, not the one that second or third episode, or third or fourth episode, where she it was with Dylan at one point, and they compare notes about, my father killed himself in the bathroom and yours blew up in a car. It was, I'll meet your tragedy and raise you one. In that regard.
And of course, that was the fount of Cindy's compassion, right? I mean, whatever she did do that I noticed was like, oh, the poor girl. I mean, of course, she's hurting inside. So it gave me free access to forgive everything as well.
I mean, that served us well. We were able to always keep going back and mining that. I mean, we think we brought the mother back at one point, and when the father abused her, and that's why he killed himself. That was never an intention, but it became handy at one point.
The gift kept on giving, huh, guys?
Yeah. So was that where
it's kind of like herpes,
Yeah. Is that where you guys intended to go with the storyline? Because this is actually one of the fan questions, that her father killed himself, because later on in season 9, it's revealed that she actually killed him.
Right.
Is that something that they just threw in there at season 9? Okay.
Yeah,
there was a season 9. I forgot about that.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, right. All right. I don't think that I know in season 5, we never planned to reveal the molestation. That was something you guys worked out. Why? Yeah. Because they needed material.
Right. I mean, it was a great
32 hours.
We kind of shifted very nicely, Larry. So kudos to you guys for moving that storyline along. I think that was a good way to go. Now, is there things that Aaron wants with her? Now that he's got the person that he wants involved in this, is there things that he's looking for out of this character that you now have to answer to? Or even at the network, are there things that they're looking for that you now have to add to this?
No, remember me saying that every season was different.
Yes.
And season 5 was the season not just where we became a more sophisticated college show or 20-something show, but also it was when the network became much more sophisticated. Coming into the 5th season, they bought viewing rights for the NFL. They did not have that. And what happened as a result of that is they spent a lot of money on that. And many of the affiliates who really were in a football-centric universe who were CBS affiliates, because Fox bought into the CBS football package. So a lot of CBS affiliates switched to Fox. So we immediately had better rating. We had better station group. And you remember back when we had Sandy and Darren here, and we're talking about some of the woes that happened after Brenda's at the dance. Well, it was because of the station group. They were, were a little not like what you'd expect maybe a Hollywood or New York corporate media organization to be like in a situation. They didn't react as such. Now we had that. Mm-hmm. So, and also Aaron had shows on the air everywhere now. When I started, no shows. Then there were 2 shows, Melrose and Us. And then How he grew. He was Mr. Spelling in his 70s, was hot again as a producer. And he was so busy that he just figured these guys know what they're doing. And I think the network, we had a really fine executive at that point named Jonathan Littman. And Littman came in right around the time of the summer episodes. Jonathan went on to become Jerry Bruckheimer's partner. Wow. So if you think that CSI was it was your cup of tea, he was the one getting it out of the tea bags and putting it. He did that. He was a really good executive. He was, and he also was very good in the development, letting us go. So season 5, we had very little conflict. We had conflict in high school, and also we didn't have much in season 4. The conflict in season 4 had to do with them being scared about our ratings. Right. Once we proved that was not important anymore, season 5, they left us alone pretty much.
They did. I'm amazed how sexy it is. I mean, how everyone, just some of the stuff with Tiffani is pretty crazy.
We're going to get into that. Chase wants to know, was Drew Barrymore considered for this part?
Not for this part. That was about 2 years before.
Yeah.
And once, we said, well, hey, that might be interested. Mr. Spelling already cast her in that, was it Malibu Road, was it called, or something?
Malibu Shores.
Malibu Shores,
yeah.
That was just down the road from Malibu Road.
Magda says there was a lot of Valeries at her high school. Very funny. Okay, so you start developing this character, and what are some of the initial things you guys are talking about?
Well, we know she's going to live in Brenda's room.
Yeah,
we know she's going to live in Brenda's room. We're going to see her in her underwear. We know that. I don't know. I just think she's the outsider who's going to have contempt for everybody because they're the coastal elites, and she's kind of from Buffalo, and they all think she's hot shit, and she's kind of work them. She's all the work.
Yeah. Was that a big deal then? I mean, it's so funny. We think about pot being such a big deal in that time period. Now it's legal, whatever, but in that era, was that a big deal for you guys to do pot on television?
1, 2, 3 strikes, you're in jail for the rest of your life. That was the 90s. That's where we were at that point of time. It was a very much the drug enforcement was operative. And so it was, so this was a generation that drank. There really wasn't that much, they weren't a pothead generation. That came a little later. Some of our actors, that's what they would do to wind down, but it wasn't, the network didn't want any of that. That was not something that they wanted to glorify. In fact, for the fans here, when you go back, if you look at this episode and you notice that she's now talking on the phone and she's rolling the joint, how quickly the flame goes out. Didn't we have that go on for 4 seconds? We actually saw her inhale, and I'm not sure we saw her blow it out. I forget what it was, but we just, and Standards wants that. And you look at it and you go, well, we understand that what we want to accomplish is accomplished, whether it goes on for 3 seconds or a second and a half. So it didn't make much difference to me or Larry.
Is it true that Tiffani had a stunt double to roll that joint because she didn't know how a hand stunt double? I read somewhere.
There was a hand double. I'm not sure if we actually see it's Tiffany's hand, but I know we hired a joint roller on set.
A joint roller.
Yeah.
I thought it just came out of. I thought it always came out of the makeup department.
It probably came out of our
I
office.
have to say, it was one of my goals when I got out of college. I figured I'd, in order to be an independent woman, I needed to be able to roll my own joints.
There you go.
There you go.
And I would say something. Carole Potter sitting here, you're thinking of an actress. Carole, tell them what college you went to.
Harvard. Actually,
Whoa.
no, Radcliffe then. It was
It
Radcliffe.
was called Radcliffe at the time, yes.
Wow.
But, I have a Harvard degree, and eventually they had sex-blind admissions. So now there's no quota for women at all. It's been that way since probably the late 70s.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Larry, I'm going to ask you about
4-1 in the undergraduate and 9-1 if you counted all the graduate schools, male to female. So
very cool.
A very fertile field, let me tell you. At all.
Larry, let me ask you now. I want to ask you about the avocado heads. You mentioned this last show that we did. Valerie gets on the phone and she says these people are all avocado heads. Where does that come from for you?
In the 80s, I executive produced 52 episodes of The New Gidget. And that came out of the Gidget world where, it was just part of the colorful language of avocado heads. We called people who were stupid Californians.
Right.
And it seemed to work
And
fine.
as a native Californian, I don't take any fucking offense at that.
The fruits and the nuts thing was over. So the avocado heads was perfect.
Well, didn't we also refer to LA as the Big Avocado, like New York's Big Apple?
Well,
I remember
the big orange, the big avocado,
the big orange,
big traffic jam.
Orange, but yeah.
A lot of things.
So there's a lot of things to plot out here with Val. First of all, you got the thing where Brenda's gone, but you have to sort of reference her in some of these episodes because it's it's sort of a shock that one of the lead characters is no longer going to be on the show. So is that conscious that you guys are like, well, let's mention Brenda here, let's mention Brenda here, where we're constantly getting updates about Brenda. I think at one point Valerie's going through Brenda's stuff. So what are some of the thoughts about that, Chuck? Because I know you had mentioned a couple of times that you had big research and you found out that people liked to hear about old characters and stuff like that. Does that play into all of this?
That plays into it as exactly, Peter, what you just described, that we all had, everybody had histories together and the audience had seen these histories and wanted to be brought up to it. But also the second you bring up in the episode, I think it was the third one of our season, that where she's out in the garage and ostensibly telling Carole that she's looking for a college paper, Brenda, but she's really going through her stuff and, learns about this, sees her with Dylan, doesn't know it's Dylan McKay, doesn't know it's Jack McKay, and kind of weasels her way into it. Okay, that's a plot point.
Yeah.
So Brenda's there for that. But it was always in our interest Brenda was a huge part of these characters and, so you could see easily, Donna turning to Kelly. Have you heard from Brenda? It just is a line of dialogue we're passing because we wanted to keep the show. I mean, I feel our audience always knew we were a TV show.
Yes.
We were making a TV show, but at the same time, you wanted to do it with as much, is a good word, verisimilitude as possible.
Yeah.
A Harvard word.
I love that. And Larry, what's your perspective on that? I know later on you would mention her, even some of the characters even further.
Well, I mean, first of all, she was, we could always, you always miss the one you can't see. So we certainly, we could torture Dylan with that a lot. And that gets thrown in Valerie's face. Watching these first 7 episodes with Valerie, she's fighting against that all the time, the shadow of Brenda. Which I thought really worked well. I mean, but ultimately we really did hope to get her back because she's part of the Walsh family, and there was an end game for everybody, and she was so much a part of it. But
so just on that note, Larry,
the big thing was we needed someone in that bedroom, and God bless her, she looked great in that bedroom.
On that note, Larry, you said that a couple times that you guys wanted to get Brenda back. Was it sort of the hope that, listen, let this blow over a year or so, and then kind of revisit this conversation and see if there's a way we can all play nice together? Was that something that was a hope?
Of course, yeah. It was similar to should Donna lose her virginity, which would happen all the time, like biannually.
Right.
Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet?
Yeah.
So these are seasons. No. After season 6 and 7, we never even thought about her getting deflowered.
Right. That's a whole. I think that's a whole other episode.
Absolutely, it just never came up. One thing that's interesting, before we get too far afield, there's one story that I think I should share, but without naming names. So I think it was probably about the second or third day that we're into this episode, and I'm out there for other business, casting or a production meeting. I forget why. And an actor comes up and says, this is the first, and then another one, that they're not sure that Tiffani has the chops.
Here we go.
And I heard the same thing from the network because now part of it, and Carole, I think you might remember, we always used to board our shows a certain way. We like to start episodes with either Andrea or Jim and Cindy, because we knew they'd be prepared. They would come to they would know what to do. They wouldn't, they wouldn't show up on the set going, "What episode is this? What are we doing?" We know that we've heard that conversation many times in the first 4 seasons. Didn't hear it in the 5th season with Val at all. But there was this the first scenes that she played were very perky.
Right.
She wasn't playing the bad. I think that was one of the last things we shot in that episode, perhaps. Yeah. Or that was the second or third day. So I think that calmed down the nerves. But in thinking about it, that you cannot minimize. And, we don't, Tiffani is not here. This isn't, she's got a life with her children in this, and she's not involved with this. And because she was in the show so much after myself, she's more, has a different perspective than I might at the time. But I think she felt she had really something to prove. Yeah. And because, I'm sure, the vibe that's being felt. I am going into Brenda Walsh's room. So what am I going to do? And I noticed that some of the things that toughened her up came in the script, and probably one that of the 7 that really is great to review, to see again, is the scenes with her and Dylan in the pool hall.
Yes.
She shows up in that pool hall, and she is a femme fatale out of a bête noir movie.
Yep.
Kind of a post-war tough gal, a gal like Carole was saying, and she pulled that off. And then the next time she goes back, she's wearing a little blue jean jacket. It's even more so, and has lines like "I want a man to ache for me."
Yes.
Another one that came, that one. Really stood out. There were a couple of lines.
And then she blows him off. Glory has enough. She says to him, he says, "I'm aching." He says, "No." She says, "You're not aching enough," and she leaves him.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. I have to say the writing was really good, Chuck.
Yeah, it is holding up. I really think it's holding up the show than us.
There you go. We got it. Yeah. When you were before, when that actor says that to you, what is your reaction to that? Like, how do you handle a comment like that?
Like you would, like any CEO of a company would be doing, or which is what I was. I would, management for Mr. Spelling. I'll take it under advisement. I'll look at it. There's nothing. There was not going to be any call to Aaron. It wasn't to me. I hadn't noticed it. I'd seen the first day of dailies, and I knew I was looking at somebody different than Shannon.
Right.
But it didn't resonate, and I think that the episodes that she did, first of all in the pool hall, and then her willingness to not be that girl on Saved by the Bell,
right,
but really get horizontal with Dylan and enjoy sex without guilt.
Right.
And that's what and that's what she projects. And it's like, as I said, well, where did this come from? But it was really compelling, and it's I think it's the stuff that she did with Dylan in this. I said before once that Dylan and Jenny in the pool up in at the Bellage Hotel, one of the sexiest scenes we ever did.
Definitely.
This too. No, I think they just stand apart from all of the others in terms of the kind of passion, young passion that gets communicated.
Now, are you playing off the Saved by the Bell character initially?
No.
The cute, like the cutiness, and because we don't know that she's going to be that way, but I mean, maybe that's where that's coming from. Some of that.
No, my relationship with it was just her being a girl coming here and a little fractured and trying to fit in. My relationship with Saved by the Bell is in my conversations with Peter Engel that started right about after the second season. Peter, why are you doing all of our storylines? Mm-hmm. And we moved to college. His guys moved to college. They go to California University. Peter, why are you following us here? And Peter Engel was one of the really just terrific guys. Television was a much more collegial business in the 80s and 90s, and Peter was kind of part of that. And he was like shameless and successful. And he just said, well, it works for you. It's going to work for me. And never got mad at him. I mean, because we were really playing in different sandboxes. He was Saturday morning and we were primetime.
Well, you shared the same beach club, so you kind of were playing in the same
Let me show a clear. Do you remember these scenes when you replay them when they're replayed?
It's like a huge blank area. 5 years. All melded together. I mean, sometimes I look and go, when did I cut my hair?
I guess what I'm asking though is, I mean,
but I think you see that of course I believe you because I have compassion for her. I mean, I remember that impulse, which is she's suffered this terrible thing. I'm going to accept whatever she does with compassion and love because I know how much she's hurting inside. And I have no idea of what she's doing that I can see. And I never suspected. I don't think I ever suspected.
And I think that this was an episode.
Chuck, time out. Something's happening when you're speaking that it's getting a little bit distorted. So I don't. What's that?
Is it too loud?
Yeah, it's like distorting. You sound like a filter.
I hear in there too.
You can hear it playing backwards and stuff. Yeah, so I don't know, playing back at us. But it was great before.
It was
maybe try and lower your volume just a tad bit.
That's what I was doing.
No.
That's who I have.
All right, there you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Much better?
Yes.
Yeah. See, like Spelling said, I'd be nothing without my passions. Life is too hard.
Sorry.
So, take me back to where I was before I distorted.
We were just talking about
Carole's reaction.
Yeah, in that scene.
In that scene to with Valerie.
Well, I think that it was interesting. I mean, this is the episode where it's revealed that Dylan has got these problems, and Jim Walsh comes to talk to him, and all of that. Mm-hmm. And it is, one of the things that was consistent in the character of Cindy Walsh is her affection and compassion for Dylan McKay from start to finish. I mean, one of the big episodes in this arc that we do with Dylan is intervention, and in their house and this, and I think everyone intervened, but the Walshes gave a lot, and Jim was always, given the nature of the finances and everything, he was always ready just to, cut him loose and don't be with Brenda, and I think Carole kind of liked, as Cindy, liked a lot of the personality and rebel in there, because actually, Cindy and Jim were rebels in their own way when they were younger.
Totally. For you, Carole, you know, Brenda, the characters, we're talking as Cindy now, I guess. Brenda gave you guys a lot of trouble in that previous year. Well, really throughout most of it, you know, whether it be the thing with the pets and, you know, at the school or getting arrested and all that stuff. Was Cindy at this point, and I know we're talking as Cindy at this point, right. Was she at this point sort of, even though she was trusting of Valerie, was she, because of all the stuff that sort of Brenda had done and what she had been put through, does Cindy sort of have a little bit of suspicion in what Valerie might be up to?
I don't think so. And frankly, even though, Brenda may have put us through a lot, I don't think I ever lost my trust of her. I think I saw it as, she's struggling, so she's acting out in this way or that way. And, it's my job to be as understanding as I can be. And that's what's going to help her come to terms with whatever's going on with her. If I'm loving and compassionate, and I think my basic, sort of Midwestern trust in people doesn't really change that much.
Question. Do you think that Brenda's treatment from her parents were a bit harsher than the way Brandon was treated? Do you think there was a double standard?
Well, I have one story about Brandon. He totals his car, and in the next episode, he's driving my car. And I thought, never. That would never happen.
That was one of the that's an interesting story in itself. I'll save it for another time. That was a low point in our series, I believe. When I tried to bring it to everybody's attention, they went, nobody's paying attention. That's how the network thought about our show.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't care what you said, Sandy.
So yes, I'm sure that my son got away with a lot more than my daughter did.
Right.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I was going to jump in. I don't know how this affected you, Larry, if we ever even articulated this when you came into it, but I always saw that Brandon and Cindy had virtually the same personality, and Jim and Brenda were much more volatile.
Oh, yes.
Much more inside. I think here's Jim. We see his temper. We see his ambition. We see all of this stuff. He's an accountant. So he's not able to be the anti-war leader or the Brandon running for president or whatever it would be. And you see, he has a little more temper and was written as such and also displayed it. So I always, after that point, in fact, into that early summer episodes, I always lodge that these two were closer and the other two were closer.
Now you tell me.
Well, now here's the other mystery as far as I'm concerned. I have a theory about it, but I'm curious what you guys say. Jason and I, not only did we never have a storyline together, we never even had a scene together until I came back as a guest star in season 7. Yeah. And I thought, what is that? Because every teenage boy I know, I'm trying to get out of the sun here.
Okay.
Every teenage boy has a thing with his mother. I mean, there's a whole thing about authority and, wrestling with that. So I was just, and I just sort of assumed.
We didn't want to give any Oedipal thing, happening, I guess.
Yeah, well, you threw at him in the
plenty of father-daughter stories, though, right? I just figured Jason was the number one guy, and so he was always the leader, and he couldn't sort of buckle down to his mother.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Chuck? Curious.
Well, Carole and Jim both know this, that, there wasn't, after the first season, there wasn't that big of a push to have as much in the Walsh family firmament.
Yes, but we still had scenes with Brenda. There were still stories in which Brenda and I were interacting, and Jim and Brenda too.
But one of my favorite Cindy moments was when you threw the toaster at him in the pilot. You remember that?
Yeah.
Where's the toaster?
Yes, I know.
Here. All right, let's get back to Valerie here. When is it sort of developed that Steve is going to be into Valerie, and also she's going to be playing with Dylan? How did we pick Steve on that, Chuck?
Well, Steve was coming off of, if you remember, Steve was coming off of another broken dream romance. Is Celeste the girl, the woman he took to the prom? They get back together, and then she finds someone she really loves from her youth and drops him. So they're not going to be engaged anymore. In the front of this episode that Larry and I wrote, he's back and he realizes that Kelly Taylor is his soulmate, but Kelly, of course, was with Brandon all summer, which he didn't know. So he's open for anything. And if you remember, there's that scene, they're all together in the car, or Brandon goes to walk Kelly's car, and there's Valerie and Steve, and Valerie says, "Are you going to kiss me already?" I mean, he was just there, and she wanted to be kissed that moment. You're the guy there. And also, she was a status seeker, and hello, this is Samantha Sanders' son. Yeah. And who was the star of the Hartley House, the Mary Tyler Moore character. So
he was a warm body, and he was unattached at that moment. And, we knew the Dylan thing was going to happen, and it was just, and plus Steve was the perfect guy to break his heart again. I mean,
and it really is the defining. If you look at these 7 as one block, when this episode, Who's Zooming Who, when it's discovered by Steve that. And David is in the scene as well, that, she slept the night here and they actually are together. The whole episode ends with a cold cock. He gets smacked, it blacks out, it gets hit right across the face. This group is now fractured. Yeah. This woman is right in the middle.
In 2 months, Valerie has totally wrecked everyone's friendship. Fantastic.
But before we go there, I just want to say one thing, and I think you might even have this clip of the in the Who's Zooming Who, when Dylan does this whole front line assault on her. I mean, really just kind of, you got instant family, and you're in Brenda's bedroom, and it's this and this, and the way that Luke can rant.
Yes.
And she goes back, and all of a sudden, we've never seen her in tears. I've never seen her in tears. Oh my God, she's crying, and in a real weird way says, "What's wrong with that?"
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, this is the same one that you told me 6 weeks ago that didn't have the chops to do a scene like that. Well, guess what, guys? You guys were all wrong. And from there, she was a vital part of the television show Beverly Hills 90210.
I got to tell you, the music cues are just so brilliant about this show. Who gets props for underscoring right in that moment with the tears and the hug? Who is that? I know we talk about the music a lot.
We had different composers. It's hard to say who that one was.
After a while, truthfully, Peter, and after a while, when you're part of that group, and that was the music group, and Rocky Moriano, and of course Kenny Miller and Steve Wasserman and myself and Dave Semmel, who was our associate producer, we'd all be in the room. And you could just tell, and after a while, lift it up here. Kenny was really good at that, but moreover, I think that what I take away from that moment too is that here's Dylan, who we have started since the first episode Larry and I did this season, just a real complete downward spiral.
Yes.
Into himself, sorry for himself. He looks at her in this scene, and what the audience loved about the soul of Dylan McKay, the sweet guy that is down there 50 layers down, all that hurt, he comes out there and they have that moment. I think that to me, you could have left that dry and you still would have been as emotionally moved. Dry meaning no music underscore at all.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Chuck, who writes that little bit of dialogue?
I think we all.
Well, I've been sleeping with that woman for about over 40 years. That's Karen Rosen, and
very cool.
believe me, this show was very precarious in the first 12, and I wouldn't have got through it without Karen, and that really goes for the whole experience and life itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful scene. Was it important for you guys at that point to say "I'm not Brenda" to the audience as well, not just not just obviously for what she's saying in character, but was that important for you guys, Chuck?
I don't know, important. One of the things about everything involved with this show, every scene, every episode, you have to think of the television show as almost like if I might pronounce this wrong, a Rorschach test, where everybody's going to see what they're going to see in the pattern. Some people came to this television show week after week to see what Tori was going to be wearing. Some people came to this week because of the soap opera. Some people came to, it's going to be a funny episode. This has some, we're in this dramatic art. Who knows why people came? I love the boys. People came for all different reasons. And so, I don't think specifically in that moment, I don't interpret it as I'm not Brenda, so stop comparing me, audience. I'm not Brenda, so don't ever call me that again, Dylan. See, it would have multiple meanings. And that is, I think that's something that, especially in this time, was something we tended to use a lot. You agree, Larry?
I think the other thing was because we were really into their relationship, and Valerie needed to get Brenda out of Dylan's head. Right now, the shadow of Brenda and the ghost of Brenda is what's between them. So she's trying to invalidate Brenda. But I don't think we thought that deeply. We had to do that. I mean, it was really, but at the same time, we knew how much that meant when you said those words. They had power to them.
Oh, it was big. Let me show you guys another clip, and I want to ask you guys about this too. God, so good.
About that scene.
Love that. So anyway, this begins this sort of rivalry between Valerie and Kelly. And it's a different side of Kelly that we're not really used to seeing. So where is some of this coming from, Chuck?
From the need to have the need to have conflict. The need to have characters who, that he or she is in the Walsh house and all should be fine. Well, no, all isn't fine. Yeah. And it's right. Her criticism of Kelly right there is absolutely right. Kelly doesn't really like is judgmental.
Yes.
Despite the fact that we changed her and her ways in a lot of ways from what she was in high school to here, she still was very judgmental. And Valerie, Carole as Cindy had a reason not to really look too closely. But if you remember, she had knew that Val had was back in the back room with Dylan, and she jumped to a conclusion that they were getting it on, which is kind of right.
Yes,
but,
it's a great
fooling around. But Valerie behaves kind of like a sociopath sometimes, and we write her as such.
Yeah, we lost Larry there. Hopefully,
Larry, come back.
Yeah, don't.
I wasn't talking about you as the sociopath. I wrote her as the sociopath.
While we have Carole here, let's talk a little bit about your experiences with Tiffani and working with Valerie. You told me that you said before it was a great experience. Is there any moments from your time together that you really enjoy and scenes?
I think it was right at the right in the first maybe couple of episodes she was on. I just remember doing a scene with her in the kitchen, and we were just having so much fun. I mean, the actors were just having a blast, like tossing the dialogue back and forth and playing with it. I just, it was just always
welcome back, Larry.
Always great to be in a scene with her because she was very alive and she was very in the moment and she was very fluid.
Yeah,
so it was like a really fun game.
Very awesome.
Great, loved it.
Okay, and so let's talk about this thing with Brian. She's dating Brian when she comes onto the show.
Well, look, like I said, like Chuck had said earlier, we kind of thought it was a good thing. That you're talking about hiring Valerie and what was going on there.
Yeah, Valerie's coming to the show and she's dating
now, you can see what happened. I mean, what we did was we put her in bed with Luke Perry, so he had to watch that.
How are you finding? How is this going for you guys as it's developed?
That was tough for him.
I can't.
It was very hard for Brian, and it was pretty clear, given how he was reacting to Tiffani experimenting with her acting as much as anything, and her roles and herself both being young, that it was unlikely that they could stay together as a couple, because this was something that if you're with an actress who's a sexual actress, you just have to say, not be threatened by these interactions. It's part of being an actor. It was pretty clear to Tiffani by the end that wasn't ever going to be. It caused her a lot of. I think he was hurt, and he made her know it, and it was tough for both of them. Yeah, it was tough for the person who had to. It was tough for the person who had to Swiss the whole time.
Well, that's a lot for someone to walk into. Plus, she's got to, I hate this phrase, but she has to almost prove herself as an actor with this cast that already exists. So she goes through that process of proving herself. She's got this relationship with Brian, which is wonderful, and now is probably going through a lot of challenges in that relationship because of her scene partners or whatever it is that's happening. I can't imagine walking into that fire.
Right.
Yeah, Carole.
Well, the other thing was the guys themselves, like guys, they've been working together a lot. There's a camaraderie between them, and Brian is the youngest,
right?
So it's kind of fun to get his goat a little bit. I'm kissing his girlfriend. Look,
yeah.
And there was a little bit of that going on, certainly, and that's infuriating. Chuck, do you remember when he called us up?
Which week?
pretty early on when he found out that she was cast, pretty much right away, and that's when
right from the start. Yes, that caught us by
surprise. Oh no! It
was what Aaron wanted. It was Aaron's cast, like I said, and she was good, and we're really happy this happened. But nonetheless, you got a problem, Bri. His office is down the hall from mine.
That's pretty much what you said, I think, to him. That's what you told me.
I mean, it wasn't my, not my decision. And certainly, no, we didn't have any, awareness of it. But I think, he had trouble when she was kissing Ian in the first episode.
Mm.
He had no idea what we were writing in the room for to happen with Dylan.
Were Tiffani and Brian already broken up by the time Val and David became a couple during season 6?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they had
they were long a couple.
We'll get into that at some other point, though. But I do.
Irony.
Yeah. They
break up and you make them play together. I think.
Oh, but their chemistry was undeniable.
Oh yeah, I guess
they're actors. Make them do things.
Exactly. All right, Lily, what do you got fan wise? We got questions for Carole. Do we have?
I do. So, a couple of the questions for Carole is what Cindy Walsh characteristics were most relatable to you, and how do you feel about being one of the most loved TV moms of the 90s?
Very nice. Yeah.
Oh, well. My mother used to refer to me as the Donna Reed of the 90s. I took it as a great compliment, frankly. I'm always just amazed at how people relate to this character and what it's meant to people. I was in a little group. We were at a retreat together, and there was a little group outside the kitchen, and we're all joking and laughing. And somebody happened to mention, "Oh yeah, 90210," and this fellow who has now been. We know each other now. It's the second retreat we've been to, and we've talked, and he knows me, and all of us. He gets this look on his face, like, "Oh my God, that's why you look so familiar." I mean, he literally said, "You raised me."
Right.
And I mean, oh God, how can you not be touched when people have that, reaction to you? So it's a kind of a responsibility, and I'm, I got to play the good mom as opposed to like my friend Annie Gillespie, who like did everything wrong.
Right.
That was Kelly's mom.
Now an Episcopal priest, by the way.
Yeah. Jennifer says
because Carole just
mom. Yeah.
Because Carole just brought that up about the Episcopal priest. One of the things I really like about our family, and we didn't hit this on the head at all, but every once in a while we'd have an episode and you'd see them all come back in the high school years particularly, and they had come back from church. And I would not have known to put that in. And I think it improved the character, improved the family dynamic. Carole brought that to my attention. Can't they ever start the scene that way? Do you remember that, Carole?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would, and I remember when Jim and I came back from, I think it was a concert or something, and we come in singing the Quaker song, "'Tis a Joy to Be Simple," and it was just such a nice little touch that to give that quality of, what do we like out there, and what we bring in the house, and how it resonates with the kind of values we're trying to sort of create in this family. It's not just the parents, but you guys, the way you're writing it, that's the whole.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, knowing this is that
built around those kinds of things.
Magda says you raised us all, Mom. So there you go.
Very sweet. Thank you.
Very nice. Lily, you have any other questions for all of us about Valerie? I mean, someone asked a good question, and I think this is probably for more for Larry or both of you guys. I mean, there's this whole thing where, and I can't find the question now, but somebody asked about Ray and Valerie. There's a moment where Valerie hooks up with Ray. Where was that, you guys?
I didn't see that one, but I kind of have one.
Let Larry answer that question. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was, look, I mean, like Chuck keeps saying, we had to have a lot of story. So, I think nothing would drive Donna more than losing Ray. I mean, Valerie worked every character. Wherever their weakness was, she moved in there and made life uncomfortable for them. So the idea of getting with Ray, I guess it was because of the Peach Parade After Dark stuff. We just knew. Again, there was a concept we used to talk about called vertical integration, where you want to turn the characters in on each other rather than bring in outside characters, create the conflict within. And so we're constantly looking to do that, turning this matrix wheel. And that's why, I guess, in a bad way, when you look at all the people that Kelly Taylor slept with in the group, did she sleep with everybody? I don't know. But it was hard that day. But Ray and Valerie, that was a temptation there.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, one of the things
want to say one thing about Brian, because I talked about him being the youngest, but in the end, Brian was a chick magnet. He got the best women, of course, in the most beautiful way. Right. The best revenge is living well.
Yeah.
A lot of people are quoting this line from the episode. One of the episodes of Valerie is, "He seems kind of dumb, but I bet he gives good credit card." Yeah, who gets credit for that?
Sounds like a Larry Malone line, if I ever heard one.
I love that. Okay, what else do you have, Lily?
So I have a Val question and one more for Carole.
Sure.
I'll start with the Val question. So basically, how come David was Valerie's only serious committed relationship? How come we didn't see her actually have something more meaningful with any of the other guys or someone new?
She's incapable. I mean, I just think that was just her fatal flaw, really. She was a broken person, really. I think the stuff with Brian, though, really worked out well, as I remember. I have to revisit those episodes again.
Yeah, it's important to note that this portion of the Val chat was the early on in the development of the character. So maybe at some other point, Larry, we can do some more Val as you guys took over and Chuck left.
Yeah, I have to. It's good revisiting these things because it really opens it up and you remember what was important.
Yeah. What's your other question for Carole?
For Carole, have you kept in touch with anyone since the 90210 days? Are you still in touch with
I used to run into Jim quite a bit, actually.
Good.
Each other at auditions, and we were at one of the Hollywood convention, about a year and a half ago, and just had a great time. But I have to say, doing the reboot was such a delight because they've all grown up. I just They were all so grounded and adult, and it was just a delight and a pleasure, and so much appreciation from all of them for, oh, you look fabulous, so thank you so much for doing this. I mean, it was just wonderful.
We love seeing you
tremendously, really.
Yeah, we loved the reboot, and we loved what they did with you on it.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. I have to tell you, I had a blast. And that scene, I mean, it was 10 in the morning to about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
It was nice stuff. It was nice to see everybody back together.
Because you're in Canada, you know, it just takes longer to start.
But
in one of the episodes I was watching, this is not a Val question. This is for Chuck and Larry. My wife had me ask this question because she uses this line on me from time to time. Dylan is talking to Jim, and he says, "Must you always start by stating the obvious?" Who says that line? When I was watching the episodes, she has that conversation in the Jim comes to see them at the Peach Pit, and they see each other for the first time in a while, and then must you? I think that might be a Karen line.
Well, you know, the one thing that I'm kind of proud that I was able to do for the whole time that I did the show, we didn't go over that's my line, that's your line, that's this and this. It was our line. I mean, that could have been whoever's credited in that episode could have been their line. It could have been one of the other rewriters. We structured it that you know, there was a lot of latitude with the original writer to do what, once they got past story, to do what they wanted, and then, you know, you'd get notes, but also, you know, I had the privilege of being the final typewriter, as it were, back then. And so, you know, let's do better on this scene, make this fuller, richer, deeper, things like that. I don't know what, in the end, how it came out, because all the scripts, you know, some better than others, but they're all my children, as it were.
Oh, that's nice.
Hey, Chuck, I love that talk about Chuck's notes. Chuck would write, like what he said, it would sometimes, the worst thing you'd see on the script would be NSG, not so good. The other thing, he'd also have initial FRD, fuller, richer, deeper.
Fuller, richer, deeper. And the other one that I always
heighten the dialogue.
To heighten it up. Well, you never got that, but you know who used to. But the fact is that the other that Glenn Caron actually wrote on my first script that I got produced for the old TV show Breaking Away. And I've used it for years. And my daughter, who is a working writer in Hollywood, her loan out company is WCDB Inc., which is something I used to write on her thing sometimes, which is and usually about dialogue, but we can do better.
Yeah. We can do better. Carole, when you look back on the show all these years later, are you surprised by how much it's, you know, grown and that it's still so relevant? Do you look back on the episodes and say, wow, it still holds up?
Well, you know, I'm not surprised that it's still relevant, because I think that they were really, you know, mining the heart of the American teenager, really. And they have the same struggles today that kids had in the 90s. I mean, you know, some of the context may be a little different, but it's still the same issues: sex, drugs, how do we deal with our friends? And it's a great opportunity, I think, for parents to watch with their kids. And you talk about all that same stuff, but you don't have to say, what are you doing? You can say, well, what do you think of what Brenda just did? Or what do you think about the way Val is operating? And is she a good friend? And what do you think about, you know, Dylan and Kelly? And so you can have all the conversations you need to have about, you know, helping them walk through this treacherous time. I mean, adolescence in this country, at least, is kind of a nightmare for kids. And I don't think it's gotten any easier. In fact, it's probably gotten harder with social media. No. I mean, I'm sure we would have done stuff of people getting trolled on social media and stuff, and it, you know, wasn't a thing then.
Cyberbullying,
but it's the same struggles, and it's the same heartaches. So yeah, I think it's completely relevant. And it also may have a certain sort of nostalgia for kids today as, wow, things were a little simpler then, you didn't have to worry about your social media presence or,
Right.
I got a wonderful letter from a couple in Australia who had grown up watching the show and they just loved it. And they were now married and they had like 3 girls. And they come across the first scene in the first season on DVD, and they're going, "Oh wow, we can watch this." They ended up watching all 10 seasons with their children, right, and going through that experience as a family. And I think it really bonded them, that they really appreciated it. And I think that's why it's still very, very relevant. Even sorry, the fashions, every time I see what I wore, I just cringe with the shoulders.
Carole, remember what I said? Casting and wardrobe, not my thing. Didn't have any
very much of the period, Chuck. I mean, I was total.
Oh, those high-waisted blue jeans on women were. Yeah, the high-waisted blue jeans.
I see myself in candid shots, in other situations, and I go, "What was I thinking?"
High-waisted jeans are in again, okay?
Oh my Lord!
For Chuck and Larry, when you guys look back on this all these years later, and the performance that Valerie gave, and Carole, you can weigh in this now. Young actor jumps into a new role. What are your thoughts looking back on it all these years later? Larry, let's go with you.
I mean, I was just amazed. She's playing this two-faced character, and like I said, I felt good about our writing, the whole, the staff, the level of it, and the intricacies of it. But I just thought her approach to it just brought so much energy. I mean, she killed it, really. I mean, she had to replace Brenda. I mean, Shannon Doherty, Brenda, and you never missed her. It was just, there was something always going on. There was so much agenda jumping from her, and you just could see it all one leap to, she just was making her moves to get to Dylan. It was really pretty exciting.
Yeah.
For you, Chuck, what do you think?
Well, I think that we, with the character of Valerie, truthfully, that we just pretty much scratched the surface, because even in just season 5, because once she gets money in her pocket and from helping Dylan down in Mexico, she becomes she doesn't really care what Jim and Cindy think anymore. She doesn't really care what anybody thinks. She thinks that money can buy her love.
Yeah.
A very Buffalo thing. And it's, and has to learn that in fact it's more complicated. I also think that she, by the end of the season, really was ushering maybe 3 to 4 by the end, with stuff with Ray and other things going on, and her tips with Kelly. I think she really ushered in the fact that, at least for me, who always thought I was doing a serialized dramedy, really, in some ways. Oh no, we're doing a soap opera. It was a different. You could see that just in the stories we laid out. We always used to have a template, a big episode. If you think about the one about the real world, a lot of stuff going on in that episode, but we had something for them to do in it. Going to the Rolling Stones, they had something to do as a group, or as the keg party. There's something. And when the last 3 or 4, we didn't have that. It just was, you're being a bitch, you're being a bit, it was different. And she really did that very well too.
Yes.
And obviously, because she stayed with this show for so long, she was a vital part of the tone. And obviously adjusted her whole performances to be that.
Wendy says she loves watching 90210. She's still watching it now with her family. So
thanks, Wendy.
That's very, very good. Holly says that Val always had me hooked. I could never stop watching. Very, very nice compliments there. And we'll see. We got one more here. Karen says, I started watching 90210 in my 30s, and I'm 59, and I love to watch it every day. It's the best show ever. So.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Karen. That was a big thing. This was that you started in your 30s, and we worked really hard to make it a show that could appeal to a person in their 30s, not just because they were the parent,
right?
But because of the culture itself that they could remember.
Well, I remember teenagers and 30-somethings that seemed to be our strongest demographics at that time.
Yeah.
Well, I think we kind of wrapped the first portion of Valerie. Like you said, Chuck, I think we could do a whole other part 2 of Valerie Malone with you guys down the line. But next week, we are going to visit a Steve-centric episode. We're going to hit crunch time. We're going to do a deep dive into Steve getting, almost kicked out of the
Keg house.
Keg house.
Oh my God! Yeah.
A lot of moving
There
parts.
was no behind the scenes drama in the writers' room with that one, was there, Larry?
You have to tell me off thing. Was it? I'm having trouble. Was this
outing the fraternity president?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
but it was late. Was that the one that we had to recast the fraternity president?
Let's. Oh God, boy, you're giving some good little.
Yeah, well, we don't want to hurt that actor. I don't think we're not going to.
I'm fine with that.
He's a big actor now.
He's a big actor.
What I'm destroy his career. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll save that for next week, though. I want to dive in, but I just gave you some tidbits there of what you've got to come to look forward to. Carole, listen, I'm all about gratitude these days. I just want to tell you, I think the world of you. We all have everybody that's watching this feed now or listening to it whenever they're listening to it. We all identify with you in a very, very powerful way. I think like the sentiment that everybody is saying that you're the mom or. It's a very powerful thing to have been in, and I know how much we all appreciate you, and also for spending the time with us, revisiting something from so long ago. So,
thank you for inviting me. It's really one of the great, wonderful pleasures of my life that I had the privilege of playing Cindy Walsh, and as a matter of fact, it's why I'm writing this book. Because the guy and I connected because he was a fan of the show. He's a psychologist. We met, we started talking. We developed a book proposal and submitted it to the American Psychological Association, and we're almost done. So, and I owe it all to 90210, which is kind of mind-blowing.
That's right. You're going to have that chapter about the neurosis of television writers too, right? In that
Actually, I always thought it would make a great sociological study, watching the actors, the kids go through those first 5 seasons. I mean, they were so young. I can't even imagine how they, got through it. But watching them sort of spin out of control. And then it was like season 5, everybody sort of got back on board. I said, oh, okay, we got to come down to earth here and get serious. It was
Sarah Page says, we love you, Carole. We all love you, and thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Zara saying the same thing. Thank you for doing this. It's amazing. Thanks for everybody for making this night. Listen, somebody said here that Wednesdays are their favorite night now. So mine as well. I look forward to because we do the podcast on Wednesdays, so I can't stop my Wednesdays, and I'm so excited to see where we're going to go next. But I think we rock this. The last thing I'm going to ask you, Carole, is somebody mentioned it. Do you want to share a Luke story to end us out, to sort of walk away on this episode? You got to play with him and work with him for a long time. Anything that you want to say about your experience working with Luke?
I adored Luke. He one of the first things, I don't know, when some conversation we were having when things were going pretty well, and I asked him something like, well, so what are you going to do with all this money you're making? And he said, oh, I'm going to buy my dad a truck. Oh, I thought, oh my God, this kid, he's so grounded. And it was so clear from the stories they told at his memorial what a grounded, genuine human being he was. And I always had a terrible crush on him, I must confess.
Nice.
And we did flirt a little bit.
Well, he was older than the other cast members too. Mostly, he was one of the older ones.
Yeah.
And I think it goes without saying when we watch these Val episodes and you see those two together, Val is great because of the partner in the room too. Luke Perry is phenomenal talent. So
This was a great arc for him. This whole, the losing the money and what it did to him, that was he really came out on that one.
I made it real. This was all about this. This was defines my 5th season was just getting the Luke story down and getting to the dreams of Dylan McKay. That was it. After that, it was like, okay, are we still making the show? Oh yeah, we got 17 more to do.
We have about 40 episodes to go.
And, but that was it was 5th season, first 13, first 7. We see what Tiffani did, but that's until that period of time, it was about Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, thanks so much for doing this. Yeah,
let me announce the details for our contest.
Right. Hold up, go ahead. We have a little contest that we're going.
So,
go ahead. Yep.
Yes, a contest for one lucky winner to join us on our May 20th show. You can go to our Instagram page, Beverly Hills 90210 show, for all the details. But basically, you have to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts in order to enter. Follow us on Instagram and share a screenshot of your review to your Instagram story and tag us. Yes. And we're going to choose one winner at random on May 19th at 5 p.m. Pacific. And you must be available for the May 20th recording.
Yeah, so you'll get a chance to join us here. We'll give you the code and all that. Listen, guys, the 5-star reviews are so helpful to positioning us in iTunes and all that. So we really appreciate all of that stuff. And, listen, we all love the comments and whatnot, so keep them happy and nice, right, Chuck?
Happy and nice, a good way to go through life.
Yes. All right, and again, Beverly Hills Show. What is it, Lily? What's our website for the store?
BeverlyHillsShow.com.
No.
Oh, for the store.
Yeah. Beverly Hills 90210 showshop.com. Guys, this was great. So awesome having you all here. We'll see you back next week, Wednesday again. Where we're doing some Steve Sanders stuff. So, all right, guys.
See you again, Carole. Thank you very much.
So nice to see you all.
Bye.
Yeah.
Good night.
I'll be back anytime